And we're live. Hello and welcome everyone to the Wide World of Warhammer. With us today, we got the most successful team in the ETC, WTC era, in Team Poland, if I'm not mistaken. Correct? Yeah?
I think that's
But
correct.
the most handsome, absolutely. That's undeniable, right? The most beautiful, gorgeous human beings. Like, that's, I'm sorry, but people, you got to step up your game, right?
Maybe Duda, man. And he doesn't even have a cam right now, so you can see him.
Wait. I have it, but then it destroys my internet connection, so I'm here,
No,
but now I'm
the handsome part of
disconnected.
Team Poland is here.
Absolutely. Well, but last year's second place finishes in the WTC, but hopefully maybe this year they'll try and reclaim their crown and come first this year. But before we get into all that stuff, just here to talk to Team Poland about how they're looking to prepare from last year's WTC and heading into this first ever 10th edition WTC. But before we get into all that, Chaz, Pumba, so how long have you been part of the WTC, ETC, and where maybe have people heard your beautiful voice from beforehand?
So, I have actually been playing the game since the beginning of 8th edition, I think. So, like 6 years tops. And competitively for about 9th edition, like really competitively. Last year's WTC was actually my first ETC, WTC/WTC as it transformed. And I've been tryharding and like trying to get into the team for like 2 years, but of course, because of the pandemic, some WTCs just didn't happen. And that's one of the reasons why the last year was my first year. But I've been pretty successful with captaining my like local teams and stuff. And because of that, I think I've come a long way since then. And now I'm one of the selectors of Team Poland, right? I've been definitely dabbling in some podcasting with guys from Contact Lost. I've been doing some Team Poland podcasts that are in Polish for Polish community mainly as well. And that's basically me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so thank you for joining us today. But one of the main selectors and one of the playing members for this year's upcoming team. As well, we got the Bahar's favorite Phoenix Lord himself, Duda. How you doing, buddy?
Well, thanks. That's the pretty nice. Come on.
Introduction.
There you go.
Yeah, introduction. That's what I wanted to say.
That's all good. Yes. So I know you're known for playing Elder quite a fair bit. But like, how long have you been playing 40k for, Duda? And how many ETCs, WTCs have you been to?
So it's I guess like 14th or 13th year I play, because I started when I was like 13, and that will be my 7th, I guess, ETC/WTC this year. I think so. The first time it was in Greece, Athens. It was 2016, I think. So that was my debut, and then every year I was in the team.
Very well done. That's quite the streak. I mean, only Skark being the one that probably can exceed that, but we'll get to talk about him and that sexy motherfucker later on. So, and just the world ender himself. So, but looking back on last year, so you guys came second overall. Like, how do you feel about it? Obviously, maybe most people will be quite happy with the podium finish, but I understand maybe that's just what it was so close, but yet so far. Maybe I don't know, Pumba. How do you feel about second place overall in the end, and how you guys went, your performance-wise?
I mean, I definitely think like second place finish is an incredible achievement. Let's not beat around the bush. I still think it was a great success. But the thing about Polish community and Polish 40k and Polish national team is we kind of always strive for this very first place. And as soon as you like lose the finals, it doesn't feel too great, right? It's the second place is like the worst place to actually be, because the third place is happy to be on the podium, the first place is happy because they won, and the second place is like, that could have been me, right? And it's definitely the feeling that you get, but generally the level of preparation and I think the performance that we delivered was a great achievement. I think it still needs to be said that taking the second place, especially after like the level of the game and the preparation of other teams has improved so much over the years. I think it was still a very good result for us.
Yeah, I'm sure like most people will be very happy with that second place. But like looking back, dude, do you think, guys, were there any big lessons learned from last year? I guess it's a bit awkward now. This is like a 10th edition event, but I'm sure there are lessons learned in preparation or team selection that you maybe learned from last year, the first official WTC, to this year's second one.
So I guess the biggest thing that we learned it's Gito, who learned to argue more in the table, as his game was the most controversial, and he just said that next time he will argue more, even though to make sure that he made everything possible, not give away like on kindness or such sketchy stuff. But that's the like a single thing in everything, and like for the whole team, I guess we the biggest thing we learned that the TTS is just a powerful tool that we now use like all the time, and that will be the most part of preparation this year.
Okay.
Yeah. So go ahead, Pumba.
Just quickly add on to that. I think we generally also kind of learned that time is the biggest hurdle on the way to the top currently. Like the skill doesn't actually differs much between the teams, I feel like, at the moment, but the preparation and time you put into the preparation is everything right now, and this is the difference between the top teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And like any advantage you can get in preparation and stuff like that is pivotal. So how are you guys sort of preparing for 10th edition now? So obviously right now, so at the time of recording, the Space Marine Codex chapters indices came out, and so you got a bit more information on what Space Marines look like. How are you guys getting straight into it and preparing, studying everything and trying to write lists, or are you guys still taking a bit of a break before 10th edition officially gets released and stuff like that? Maybe Pumba, you can ask, or Pumba, you can.
I think we are in this perfect moment, like this evening, generally this afternoon, that the lists are starting to get written. Like we are in this perfect place where probably I think the last big tournament in Poland for the 9th edition has just finished yesterday, literally. So now we are all fully on board for 10th edition. And this is exactly the time where some even points get trickled down, and you can see some actual list designs that can be made and be tested. And I think once the points hit, I believe the rumored time would be this Friday or something. I think we are just full steam ahead and full prep. So I think this is generally the time. Last couple of weeks have been a little slow, of course, because the information hasn't been complete enough that you can realistically test something and be sure about it. But now the whole edition is starting to clarify and show its colors. So now is the time when we are starting to get off the ground.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess one interesting thing about 10th edition, which I'm sure Duda you can iterate on, is obviously we're getting cards back again. You know, we had one edition of not being able to flip over cards and go Uno per se, but now we've got Maelstrom of War cards back essentially. Duda, how do you feel? Do you think Team Poland are going to have quite an advantage, or other teams which have had years of experience in that sort of format compared to others? And are you excited about these potential changes?
Yes, I'm 100% excited about the changes because the last year, I guess, of 9th edition was just boring. Because of the secondaries and how were they picked, most of the games you can just see the pairing and you just know the result. Unless, if you just two players on the same level met with such armies on such table and such mission, you know the result before the game, and you could probably not play because it will swing 1-2 points up or down, but you knew the result, and it was just boring. I was going to the tournaments, I was playing the games, and all of them looked the same. Now, due to the Maelstrom of War, as we call it, the cards, maybe at least the games would look some different, unless of course the core mechanics would not destroy the game. Like, it doesn't matter if you score the missions because your opponent, if he's dead, he doesn't score. But if the core rules would be like balanced out, the games would be definitely more interesting, and that's fine for me. And I think that Polish players are prepared to this, because we always try to find some like not usual solutions, and we always try to find the in-game solution, how to increase the result. So we are not setting for one solution on the game, like one tactic for the game. We always try to like differ it out, and when the cards are in the game, you can sort of try to find solution how to score them. And I think our players are good at solving the problems in the game, not like before the game and planning the game. That's one thing, but then you have to solve the problems in the game while the game is running. And I think we preparing for it, and we are good at this.
Oh, that's very interesting to hear. So what makes like Team Poland per se, you think, unique? Obviously, I think in-game decisions and in-game tactics is one element to be able to look at things a bit differently. But I know you guys also take list design and stuff a little bit differently. I'm sure, Pumba, you're very iterative, very complex. 155 Tyranid Warriors. Yes, it was 155 exactly. Was like the epitome of list design and creation and just beauty, right? And like, but I'm sure, I know you guys you take unique approaches and thoughts to list design. But like, what is it you guys try and do with lists? Is it like, can you care to explain some of the process of what you sort of try and do to, I guess, create a competitive advantage in that uniqueness?
I don't think we particularly strive to do something differently just for the sake of it. I don't think that's usually how it goes. We try to definitely, the approach always differs as well, because the edition differs, the game differs. And some of the times you'd take approaches like figuring out the meta ahead, for example, right? So assessing what's the best, like what the best armies are, and try to answer them. Other times you would just find the best armies and just try to solve for them, or find specific lists that counter those, for example. Now that the 10th edition is right on the heels of us, basically, like just coming out, there's realistically no way to say how the meta is going to evolve, how it's going to look like, right? So the first thing you would try to figure out if there are clearly broken things, Elder, for example, right? And stuff like that. Can you counter those, etc.? So I don't think our approaches are particular. We aren't especially set for our lists to be super different or super unique or just edgy for the sake of it. I think we try to figure things out to optimize them, is what I would say. I think we are a focus team that tries to optimize every single aspect of picking the armies and team selection, for example.
Yeah, so what's this process of optimizing? Maybe Duda, you can relate. What's the process? Is it you guys have a thoughts I think we can probably expand this way in Elder per se, and is it about testing it and trying to play things against the field, or is it just putting it through its paces, or what's the process for trying to optimize some things, or is it just simply going, I think 50 Deathwing Terminators is the actual answer? But, other than spares.
Yeah, so that's the start, that you just find the most broken unit and maximize the amount of models in your roster. That's the start. And then you just run it into the table 3-4 times, and then you see maybe 30 is good, but if I have 25, then I have space to put up 2 land speeders who would get me behind enemy lines or something. And then you run the list with those 2 land speeders. And then you can decide that, okay, 2 my land speeders is not that great because 1 is enough. So if I drop 1 land speeder and maybe 2 more terminators, then I have put inside something else. And then you play it again. And then you see that 23 terminators is too little because there is no critical mass of them. So then you have to drop something else and put up more terminators. And basically you just play, take the conclusions, and you just iterate. So I guess that's how we work.
There we go. That's the secret tech there, people. Start with 50, then reduce. But no, that sounds awesome. But so something quite unique about 10th edition per se is we officially don't know what all the factions are going to be like, what's going to be powerful, what's not going to be. How are you guys selecting a team for this year's WTC? Is it based upon like I guess a player performance per se and how strong they are as players, or are you sticking to like some faction specialists and hoping that the faction is good? Maybe Pumba, you can answer as like one of the people who was part of the council of selected players.
Yeah, I think this year's team has a good mixture of army specialists and people like who are really into their factions and know them like really well and could probably find like are very also passionate about them, for example. And also a group of people that has been known and has jumped all over the factions in the last couple of years or like 3 years, for example. And I think in the dawn of the new edition, I kind of feel like you need both, especially now, because on one hand, you like need people to be able to switch. If that army doesn't work, for example, if it's not top 8, if it's not going to work, you need to just take a different one. Find a solution right there, something like that, right? But on the other hand, if you have a very dedicated player who will put incredible amounts of time and effort to find a good optimized list on a medium faction, for example, that may be a great value added to the team because some of the teams might not expect that, for example. It might be very off meta. It might bring something new to the table, right? So this year, I think we have a mixture of both. We also have something like faction specialists or playstyle specialists, what we call them, right? People like Skark, for example, as we've mentioned him already. He's this kind of take whatever's most broken, shooty, optimized list and just make it sing, right? Super like mathematical, extremely optimized, just blow people off the table. And he's done that for so many editions now. And this is kind of like a playstyle specialist, right? For example. And so we have a very nice mixture, I think, of people of all like kinds this year.
And is this like pretty normal for people from the Polish community that people like sort of stick to their faction specialists or stick within their range and I guess improve in that area, or do most people try and become more generalized? I guess maybe Duda, you can answer, because my understanding is that generally you guys have like faction specialists and you have like 1 or 2 factions, but that's literally all you play, and then the team's selected based upon that. With I guess more faction hopping becoming more a trend more of late.
I guess we have some of that, some of the others. There's like no, if for the whole community, I would say like people just stick to their factions. But of course, when we talk about the whole community, we talk about like a large part of players who are not necessarily like competitive and representation aiming. So they just would like to play I like to play Space Wolves, so I play my Space Wolf no matter what, right? But for the most competitive players, there is a mix of them. So, for example, I stick mostly to 2 armies, but I feel like easy to switch if something else would be great. But there are guys who just always take what is the most broken right now, and there are the guys like Kito who always plays Necrons no matter what. And
there's definitely a mixture of those. Like you wouldn't be able to tell that like the whole country or even the people on top would be like faction specialists or sticking to 1-2 armies. I think there's like a whole wide field of approaches.
Yeah, that's completely fair. And I think I think I want to be intrigued to know how this edition unveils, and as we understand more, I'm sure we'll be able to determine what factions are strong and which ones are not. And I'm sure there's going to be hits and misses along the way, but that's just the narrative for when WTC is scheduled. There's always going to be some book or something coming out in just like a mission pack or a new edition. So we'll be interesting to see how it all goes. And it's not a one size fits all solution. So, but yeah, I think something that's interesting to note is in recent years, Team Poland, I would say, ventured out a lot more. So you guys are traditionally played a lot of WTC style events, but all quite internal, I would say. Whereas now you're sort of venturing out, we're getting here a bit more, and you're going outside your borders. So I know my son, so he played the Harlequins of Poland last year, entered that French event and just crushed it, just destroyed some French people. But yourself and Typhus, Pumba, you guys attended the ITT, so the International Team Tournament in the UK, as well as did some reffing there. So what has been this adventure like going outside to external events per se? And if you're experienced that, like, how have you learned many things along the way?
For me personally, for example, it's one of the greatest achievements. I feel like this year's selection process and the general season of, because as usually for national teams, as soon as WTC is over, the next season begins and the new selection process begins and the preparation already begins, right? So this year's selection process and the overall like season, I think what I'm most proud of is actually how many international events we've attended, as like pretty much all the people that are on this year's team have ventured outside of Poland to play in international team events. As you've said, I've been to ITT, I've been to Alpine with the Statczek team, for example. Duda has been there as well with Team Poland. So that has like taught me so much about just playing internationally. And I think what I've learned the most actually is not to underestimate foreign metas, like genuinely. I think being just stuck in one country's meta is very limiting in terms of perspective. And like having this one approach that works is good, but confronting it with other people's approaches, like doing things with Ines, for example, from Team Scotland, playing in the same team as Anthony Vanilla, right? And just confronting the ideas that we have about things, just simple things like pairings in the like 5v5 teams format has been very eye-opening for me. And like seeing other people that I write and perform great with just wheel lists that we didn't especially like understand. And it's something that began even last season with the dawn of TTS and international scrims that we've done a lot of. And this broadly just opened possibilities for our players to experience playing people from around the globe and just learning from that, just not being stuck and in like one Polish meta with the relatively small group of people still, just sitting on the same ideas over and over again instead of learning new things.
Yeah, I think it's something fair to say about getting outside your area or your comfort zone per se. Obviously, the Polish community is a strong one. Like you get some good quality reps and information from there, but being able to hear and test ideas across the globe per se is awesome because you can test your fundamentals and list creations across other things. But going back to that, so you said you learned quite a bit from Ines and Anthony, obviously Statczek fame. But what was it that you learned from them? Was it just how to speak some proper English? Or I mean, they don't really speak proper English. Let's be real.
No way. No way, bro.
You cannot learn how to speak English from Scott, right?
No, absolutely
right, exactly.
not.
There were 2 Americans in that team and a Scotsman. No way I'm learning from that bunch. But generally, for example, as I've said, I haven't been actually playing for that long yet. I've been to one WTC, right? So I still have a lot to learn in terms of approaches for doing pairings and stuff. And as like much success as I've had with captaining my local team, for example, there's still things that I wasn't aware of. For example, just as an example of many things, I've never learned to pair for like specific matchups, like bossing people very hard to get very specific matchups. I was kind of pairing, always trying to figure out the best answers for everything. And like they've actually, like Ines, for example, is just an amazing player, one of the best players in the world, right? But the Scottish national team isn't bad, but it's not the best team in the world, which kind of means that he needs to always bring his best game. And to do that, he sometimes just has to be able to pair just for him, just protect himself in the pairing process. I've never actually done that. And I think learning how to do that properly without actually losing the matchup, just not, okay, you four guys, you just lose, but at least I won, and actually
Some of you will die, but that's the sacrifice I'm willing to accept.
Basically, right? But actually doing that properly and bringing the result as a team still, I think is a valuable skill to have, and something that I've never done. So that's kind of different approaches coming from guiding different types of players, different teams, for example.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. So what Pumba's iterating there is like, instead of like traditionally trying to maybe get some yellows and oranges, which is like or maybe like drawish or like small losses, is potentially someone has like quite a big loss, but that opens up the pairings for later on. And like, yes, we'll accept this loss, but we get better pairings later on, and trying to find that a different approach that way, which is awesome. So a really good insight there of how you can pair a bit differently. Speaking of someone who is always a menace in the pairing, so Duda, we always see this guy named Skark, and I understand he's attending Atlanta on September to November, but also he's attending the WTC. So what's like the primer, or what's like the word of warning that people should be ready for when Skark comes to you and gets boom dead?
Well, I guess you should prepare some Vaseline.
I don't know, man. Skark is a really nice guy.
Yeah.
You're
That's true. Of
doing
course,
that,
it was a joke, right? Well, I don't know what's that magic of Skark that his reputation like exceeds him, and a lot of times I see the game that just his opponent, the Skark's opponent, like wins the game for the Skark by just doing a lot of ununderstandable stuff just because he plays Skark, right? So his hands are already shaking. He is like sweating, and he's like, "Oh my god, he's Skark! Oh my god!" And just his brain just switches off, and so that's the magic of Skark. Like, of course, he's a great player. That's it's not like Skark cannot play. He wins just only because he's a Skark. He's a great player, but many times like his opponents just losing their mind and like helps to maximize the score.
Sure. Yeah, when people like are intimidated by like a known figure, so someone they know or have heard of online and stuff like that, they can go, "Holy shit, this is XYZ. I am gonna lose." And then reality is they're not be that much better than you are, but it's a manageable feat, and you've already lost the game mentally. So maybe something to take into consideration. But I think one good thing to know about Skark is he's attended every single ETC / or now WTC to date. How is it like having someone so experienced on your team? Is it quite helpful to have, like, I guess, a mentor figure and a dad figure essentially for the team?
Yes, exactly. He's like an anchor of our team. So we are sure that even if like he flips the game and lose it on some stupid way because we just didn't see something, we just put him on the rank pairing that we thought it was good and he lost. We are sure that it's gonna like go off him and his mental not gonna change at all.
Mm-hmm.
In the next game, this is the same Skark as we know him, right? He just go to the next game, even if he lost badly of some stupid sort of things. We just know that the next game the Skark is just restored and does his job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for
He's
other
extremely
players,
stable.
yeah, extremely stable. He just don't care, even if he loses. He just don't care. And for other players, there's some emotions may come in the game. if someone loses like in the way he shouldn't on the next game. We're not so sure if his mental gonna be the same. Maybe then he will try to restore in the game and do some things on purpose that he shouldn't, but he want to maximize the score, and then the game loses again, and that might have some wrong effects. In the case of Skark, there is no way it happens. He just stable do his job, and that's the like very good figure to have in a team, that you have like the certain spot. You just know that you can rely on Skark.
That's awesome. And having someone that dependable is just an amazing asset to a team. So being able to leverage that experience and I guess dependability fundamentally enough to that team is awesome. So I think one thing that was noteworthy. So Pumba, you said this is your first edition competitively. I know one thing that was unique, I guess, about 9th edition is Team Poland, well, not Team Poland themselves, but the Polish community were quite vocal about when Drukhari and Admech came out. You guys did something a bit different in the sense of you adjusted points or were trying to implement some nerfs early on to account for the Drukhari and Admech menace. Is this something that's quite common for you guys to do, like have some form of community comp for when things are just absolutely stupidly busted? Or is this something that was just like a unique situation? I guess obviously only having a little bit of experience, it's a bit hard, but I haven't heard of it since happening.
Actually, I think it was a very off thing that generally wasn't like it also wasn't unanimously supported as well, from what I remember. The situation was like 2 years ago right now or something like that, so I might be a little bit misremembering things, but from what I remember about the situation is that we generally thought the game was so toxic and so unpleasant to play that implementing anything would just improve the quality of our tournaments. And the off patch, the points changes were only introduced for a very quick while on like a TTS league for a bit, just to test them out, just to actually see if that changes anything, if that's actually better to play, if that meta becomes less toxic. And I think in the middle of that TTS league, the balance status rate dropped, and we never actually played a proper tournament with those changes. So that was a very experimental, I would say, stage. But since then, I think the community has been kind of open to introducing some changes that actually might improve the quality of player experience generally. So when there was this whole debate, like incredible like shenanigans with Votan coming out and then with their nerfs and stuff like this, some of the community was very vocal about just straight up banning them from tournaments until they get a FAQ'd, for example. There was a huge group of people that would have supported that. That didn't actually need to happen because they were nerfed before they even came out. But generally, there is a definite sentiment that sometimes the game state and game balance becomes so bad that the community needs to address that in some way just to have a nice experience playing the game. Just give me a quick second. I'm gonna turn off the.
You're good. But yeah, like as you iterated there, like, this is before the balanced star states ever was a thing. But I think now where we have like quarterly updates, as long as it's not too egregious, I imagine people are quite happy to play. Oh, well, we're going to play for another month or so. Then hopefully this next update will change things. So, but I understand that you guys are more than willing, or the community sentiment around Poland. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe Duda, you can answer is when the edition is shit per se, or like things are crap in the meta, you guys will just like flat out just drop the game and play something else. And no, allegedly in that community, so Team Poland, you guys just play League of Legends or play AOS or just play something completely different while the meta's shit. Is that a very common thing, or is that just like a select few people who said, fuck this, I don't want to play?
So as I said earlier, the 9th edition, for example, was like pretty boring for a long time, and then I guess there was a peak for people playing League of Legends instead of 40k then. And I think that it doesn't really comes of the shittiness of the rules. I guess it's more like the boringness of them. So you just play for fun, right? And when at some point you stop like having fun because the game is boring, it's all the same and all the stuff. You just don't want to play it anymore. And I think that for example, the AOS sidestep of some guys was just the same thing. They were like, why do we want to play 40k more? Because it's boring. Let's look for something else. And then someone said, guys, there is like a Polish championships of AOS in 2 months. Maybe you want to come. And they're like, okay, why not? And so, because we are like very competitive players, and what's fun about the Polish community, that even not the best players, let's call them, are also willing always to find the most broken solution or copy our solutions and like improve them or take them for themselves. But I guess even in the worst part of 7th edition, there were still tournaments running with maybe less people, but there were still tournaments. There was like not that like 100% drop of players because the game was broken. Then there were still people who just came to the tournaments and play 5 game of torture just because they wanted to like compete themselves against each other. So I think that in our community, like it's more of how the game is boring or exciting rather than if it's broken or not. Because if it's broken and it's exciting still, there will be a lot of people who just want to compete and try to show they are the best in our community.
Yeah, that's more than fair. Like, do you think that's true, Pumba? Is that what you echo? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think that it was kind of a bonding exercise for the community to just switch off and start playing other stuff for a little bit. I think there was definitely guys had the AOS phase, as we've mentioned, just going to the Polish Team Championship and doing really actually well there, just off the bat. There was a phase of us, all of us, like the whole Polish community playing League of Legends together. Now, for the last 2 weeks, I believe some of the lads have been enjoying Counter-Strike again for like a billionth time or something after 20 years of a break. So it's those phases, right? So now this is the end of the edition. There's nothing to do. It's a little bit boring. Nobody cares. Let's just, I don't know, play Counter-Strike together. So that's kind of a fun thing that happens once in a blue moon, and I completely agree that it's more in terms of if the game is very stale and just predictable. I think that's the biggest turn off for us in terms of playing or not playing 40k.
And as we are a rather small community, and we are all in the same Discord server together, so there always like some stupid idea comes out, and there will always be people who are supported. And then let's say 2 guys start to play Counter-Strike, and 5 other guys see, hey, they are playing Counter-Strike. Why don't we join them, right? And then like an avalanche happens, and suddenly 20 people play Counter-Strike instead of 40k, streaming it on 40k server.
Yep. Of course, always the way. Just trying to channel inner Virtus Pro, right? Just trying to become your own Pasha Biceps and old CSGO Polish super champs and stuff like that. So
basically, I think we are too old for that, though. We have some young people in the community who are doing pretty well, but I think most of us are very old for esports standards as of late.
Yes, yeah. As soon as you hit like beyond like 25, even it's like definitely a bit sketchy for sure. Exactly. So, but I think it's funny what you mentioned though, like people taking a break. It's actually not common here as well. Like I know there's a group in Australia, Queensland, like a bunch of like good 40k players. They like just for a laugh, like, oh, let's go attend this AOS Team Champs, and they actually the first ever AOS event. They won it, like, and they beat like Team Australia AOS players and stuff like that. But they also like to not like shit on AOS per se. They got some lessons learned of like how the community ran, and like there's some like I guess things the AOS community was behind on and how they perform. But it was good to learn from, and they improved their 40k experience from it. Just like different concepts and different ideas and strategies. And I'm sure you guys playing Counter-Strike, you're like, oh, this is a different way to approach things because there's like different strats and things like that within the game that might be applicable to just test your mind and open things up. So it's a good time. But I think it's important to note that you guys do it as a community, which is fantastic. And I understand, like, during COVID and lockdowns and stuff like that, you guys tightened a lot as a community. I want to say, Pumba, I think you're a Krakow, I want to say from memory, so the south of Poland, obviously quite isolated. And before COVID, you guys were all quite distinct and separated. So has this like community unionization like continues to grow per se, and like be all like one team Poland essentially? Maybe, I guess, Pumba, you can start. Like, how have you seen this growth of community homogenization, and where's it growing to?
Basically, it started off with just then the internal need of everybody, as Duda said, just trying to compete with each other and not being able to, is the short version, right? The lockdown hit us, and there was no tournaments, nothing going on. You couldn't even go to your local store play. So everybody started to find ways to actually still play 40k. And then I don't know where and how actually the 40k Polish 40k Discord server was made. But this literally just ignited the community again as a community, because as you've mentioned, there was a big sentiment that there are centers of play, we call them. So basically cities where people play 40k, and they are very like isolated, maybe is the way, but definitely you wouldn't usually go to a team event, for example, with people from other cities. You wouldn't interact them very much, especially only like on the after parties after team events, for example, right? Or other 2-day events, GTs and stuff. But now we had actually a great source, a great chat, a great medium to talk with everybody in Poland. And literally this happened so much and so often because everybody was just sitting at home, that the community just exploded and grew so much just from that and bonded with itself. Like, you could definitely say there's a definite Polish community in that one Discord. The main part of everybody who attends events semi-regularly is on that Discord in Poland. It's huge. It's very active. There's always discussions. There's always drama, of course, because communities are like that, especially in like war games for some reason. But yeah, and this also allowed us to actually find players from across the country who would like to be on the national team, but didn't have actually the chance to show themselves yet. I'm literally one of them, right? I haven't been playing for super long, but during that time, guys who were selected back then, so like Duda, Typhus, and my son probably had the opportunity to watch players play their games on that Discord server just from across the country, and actually try to give them attention and to give attention to people who showed promise. So that opened up a whole lot of possibilities for the whole like Polish team, national team as a whole, and Polish community overall.
Yeah, which is awesome. Like, being able to give that opportunity for people is much easier, and like, instead of having to travel like location, which is obviously can get quite expensive. I think one thing that I know you guys do is a lot of international scrims. So Duda, I know you iterated before, was like with the invention of TTS, or the growth of it, that you guys do a lot of international 8v8 scrims. So you get like Team Germany and like Team Scotland and stuff like that. You do a lot of international scrims. Like, what's this process like for doing these international scrims? And do you guys try and play everything that you have, like that you know, and try to win them all, or do you sort of keep your cards close to your chest and test out just different and unique things?
So it depends on the time of the year, I would say. So at the point where we have like after WTC, so there is September, October, November, then we want to try out the most players we can, because this is the part of the year that we have to like find the potential players to our team. And then we have like the wide group of people, we call it, and we just want to take the most people. Basically, we take everyone who wants to play. We give everyone the chance. So if we didn't, even if someone we just don't know, like came up and started to play yesterday, and he would come and say, "Hey guys, I want to play this pairing," we just give him a chance, because maybe he will just show that he wins 20-0 with someone or whatever. And the further in the year, like the further in the season, let's say, so the closer to the WTC, we just shrink, the group of people shrinks. So we just, on some points, we just like shorten the list of people we are interested in. And let's say at the where is the winter, the January, February, the list is like shortened, and from that point let's say we have 15 people, and this is the 15 people that we are aiming to select 8 out of it. So at that point, we select only them or most of them to the place against other teams, and then we are looking exactly on their skills, on their scores, how do they behave, how do they play, and the list is shrinking. The closer to the WTC, the list is shrinking, and I guess if we play it right now, like we have already the team selected and there is 2 months, I think there will be a mixture of like aiming to win and see if our composition works, and also at that we know that the 10th edition is the new one, to check out if our ideas are good or if they work or not.
Yeah, so in like testing if your ideas are good or not. So obviously, in this example, you guys have your 8 people selected. Like Pumba, what would be your strategy if you were to try to do an international scrim now? Would it be to sort of like almost like falsify information or data and like give them like a false sense of hope or confidence, and like, look, we'll just try some like fun concepts which may or may not work. I know that the initiation of Home Nations was like of this similar field. They wanted to keep all the lists close together so people couldn't see what the thinking of, and that way it's a bit more trustworthy? Or what would you try and do in this instance? Is it just play to your strengths and like show everything, or keep it close to your chest and maybe lie a little bit?
I think because what I said at the beginning, time is limited. Time is the biggest resource that everybody's lacking, and I don't think there would be actually a point to just deceiving your opponent just for the sake of it. I think it wouldn't be a worthy spend of your time. Instead, actually, I think we would just try to check things out that we think actually might work. We might say, definitely, we might take some more controversial picks. We might take some different approaches that we think are like 50-50, but we would never, I think, ever troll with like something that we think is awful, something that we don't believe in. We at least need to have confidence that this is test worthy and worthy of a time of ours and our opponents as well, right? Everybody's putting time into that. So even if you are screaming, it's also just as I think a case of just trust between teams at this point, right? We are screaming internationally, we're rivals, but it's still a game. And I think it's worth noting that we would never disrespect our opponents just by trolling them or like trying to deceive them doesn't feel particularly light if they are spending time and effort to practice with us, right? It's practice for us, it's practice for them. We understand that wholly. And in terms of like Home Nations, we actually will be hosting this type of tournament in July, organized by Myson, with I believe 6 teams coming, including Scotland, Czechia, Denmark, Poland, of course. Netherlands is there. I might be missing one. But yeah, this will be this type of training event, very close to the WTC dates, with lists completely, what should we call it, classified, let's say, with no like outside info going out of it. And it just is based on trust with every like team involved, right? But I think it's still shows like how much the international community has grown that we are ready to do something like this, and I think it will be beneficial to every single every team that is attending that style. And I think actually doing international scrims is overall one of the greatest ways to improve your community and improve your team and players, just to give them opportunity to have that international experience, to confront their ideas, their list building with what people are from other countries are presenting.
The international experience is also the part that we know normally we do not play in English. And really, that might be also, if you're not like native speaker, that might not be anything for you. But like, if you have to like play in English or think in English, because it's impossible to like think in Polish and talk in English, really, the whole thing is really different. Of course, it's like not like something totally different, but you have to be able to switch. And if you're going to do it first time on WTC, of course, you will perform much worse. And that part of experience is also very, very important.
On that note, actually,
you go,
what
Pumba.
I
Go ahead,
follow
Pumba.
is
Right?
learning the proper communication, not just in terms of speaking English, but actually being super communicative, right? Because right now the game has evolved into this very gentleman-like play by intent thing that just requires good communication between players, just understanding each other in terms of what I'm trying to achieve here. Do you understand me? Do we agree on that, right? It just requires good communication, and I think those kind of practices are and scrims are very good in delivering people and players that experience of communicating with other people in like on the at the table playing 40k, because it's a very different skill set from just even talking English, right?
Yeah, that completely fair, and that's a very good point to make. So I guess you could say this is like the English like translation course. So I think that makes sense why Team Scotland are there, right? So they can actually learn how to speak English and be able to communicate a bit better at WTC, right? And then obviously the Danish and then Czech Republic, and I think people from the Netherlands will probably be, you guess your masters, right? They actually know how to speak English, and then. Look, I'm glad you're able to offer a service to those people from Scotland how to speak English, including Brian.
Yep. Hopefully they learn something from the experience. Although I'm curious what they actually think about the Polish style of tournaments and Polish style of after partying after events. That's what I'm most curious about.
Well, speaking of like Polish traditions, then you guys have with the Euro Trash Cup, so the ETC that happened earlier this year, you guys started a new tradition of like having like a bunch of vodka bottles lined up, and then you switch them around, and that's your pairings. Duda, is this something that you guys are going to continue doing and I guess partying with, or it was just like a one-time thing? If you know.
Like I will just sum it up as Typhus and Myson, who was inventors of the idea, sum it up. So this is what happens when two guys met and they have too much money. So basically,
Nice.
that's it. There was nothing really more about it, and maybe we'll make it. But for WTC event, it's like 7 times 8 bottles of vodka. I'm not sure if they have that money, but maybe.
I need to ask Myson that. Yeah, he might have that on him. But other than that, I don't think it's a particular tradition. It's just something that was very dumb but very fucking funny.
Oh, yeah, look, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time Tythus has done something very dumb but funny. I mean, he infamously
boy.
sucked. Puma knows where
boy.
this is going. So,
But you know what was the bet about the bottles? Sam, do you know it?
I understand. So, if you guys won the event, if you won your pairing, you got to keep the bottle of vodka.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
no,
exactly.
Mitch Beard got
Correct.
to keep his, but
so
it
it doubled the stake of the game, right?
Absolutely. Like, definitely throw a 40k tournament for like a $20 bottle of vodka, right? Easy. Just throw the game, fuck it. But it's got sentimental value, so that's what matters.
Exactly. And when we were playing with friends, there was a bet for double the bottles of entire team, I guess, Arek has the bet if he wants his game because he was playing against the lady of France. And I don't know how it happened, but there was like 16 bottles on stake. And we were really afraid, and we were really afraid if he managed it out, but he did. He did. Luckily, but if he lost, like there was a bet that we give away our 8 bottles and he buys 8 more and give them away.
Oh, that could have been financial. That I will never financially recover from this sort of level of bet per se. And I'm not saying they weren't $20 bottles of vodka. I don't know what they. I'm sure they were nice bottles of vodka and they went down just as well. So, but like along with other fun bets. So. No, last year Typhus infamously sucked Matt Morrisoli's toe, but he's getting a zinger box out of it, which matters most. So, but are there any other funny bets or unique bets that you guys are going to try to have this year, or do you know that will be happening? Pumba, it looks like you might have one.
So first of all, I would like to preface this with the fact that Typhus still has not received his zinger box, and it's been almost a year. And this is a public shaming call to Matt Morrisoli and Team Australia that they have not delivered the zinger box yet. The toe has been sucked, everybody saw, and the zinger box has not been delivered. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I might have hosted some short but angry American in my house before Alpine. And because that certain short but angry American guy has already basically sold off his leg to bets with WTC teams and players, he might just be off looking for anybody who's willing to take a bet with him. And I might have also happened to be that somebody with just not enough self-respect and or dedication to refuse. And the gist of it is Anthony will be getting a Team Poland tattoo this probably autumn, I would believe, or maybe winter, because if we come higher, if we end up higher on the ranking WC than Team USA, he will be getting our team logo on his beautiful leg right next to Team Australia one. And the other part of that bet is irrelevant because they would never come end up better than us. So I'm safe, I hope. So,
I hope you think
that might have been irresponsible, but I still believe in our team. Probably, maybe, hopefully.
so such confidence there, Pumba. It's like probably, maybe. Oh, hopefully no. I'm sure you guys should be more than fine. As he said though, I think he's dedicated his whole leg to all these random tattoo bets. I know Team Canada has already been one, and I know he's been egging on Liam to get another Team Australia one or some other dumb bets per se. But it'd be interesting to see what happens when it's all said and done. Just got to follow up on him, but I'll make sure to follow up with Matt. So I'm speaking to him in like 38 hours or so. So tomorrow evening, I'll follow up with him about and make sure he's bringing that zinger box for this year's WTC at least. I mean, it's got to at least be 2 zinger boxes now, right? I mean, it's doubled in interest at least.
At least like a bigger one, maybe double zinger box, a grander. I don't know. Yeah. What's bigger?
Yeah. So I've never asked. Do you actually guys know what a zinger box is in Poland? Like, is that with KFC?
This is exactly what they fucking asked us in the pairing tables. This is the exact question that began this whole fucking process of Typhus' suffering. This exact question was asked during our pairing table. Like, as fucking Australians asking, we have KFC in Poland. Yes, we do. What the fuck do you mean? This is how it all started.
But when I went to America, like it was a bit different going to KFC. They had asked, one of the first questions I asked was it dark or white meat? I was like, what? What is this? Like, that's not a thing we have. And like they sell mac and cheese and corn and stuff like that at KFCs. And so look, it's a valid question, right? I mean, in Hong Kong, they sell custard tarts, like little like Portuguese tarts is like part of their thing at KFC. So you never know, okay? You never know. But good to know that you guys have KFC over there. You don't suffer too much. Oh,
We do
so
for
good.
different reasons, but we do have chicken, American
You
chicken.
do have chicken. As well as pierogies, which is the most important thing. So that's what
go.
really matters. That's a good bit of that back on track. So what's it going to take for Team Poland to claim back their glory and win this year's WTC? So Duda, obviously, I imagine part of some of the winning teams of the past. What is it going to take for you guys to win it this year? And how are you guys looking to achieve it? Other than just getting opponents drunk with vodka.
So that what the fuck is this cat doing? So I guess it's gonna take like a lot of preparations, and I hope like all hands on boards and everyone will just be like give his all to these 2 months until WTC happens. And vodka might be not the case because I guess in this year most of the team is not really drinking. So our alco skill, as we call it, is not gonna be there, but maybe more of the preparation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your skills in chocolate.
However, we
There you
have
go,
some
Pumba.
parts of the team that are very good in that, and whose overall performance in WC might be also just straight up connected to the amount of alcohol they drink. I might know some of them, but yeah, as
Of course,
Duda said,
if we like played, if we just gonna play the vodka drinking competition, like our single player is worth most of the team's 2 players. So yeah, we feel good at this.
There we go. So just a bit more time in preparation, then we'll save the choco dice and other drinking games till after the event, right? Until after WTC and you've won it all, right?
that's
I
the
hope
idea.
some team will agree to just play the choco dice instead of this stupid game, and just make the result of choco dice as a WTC result.
But what's the better? Oh, so you gonna say Pumba?
I just wanted to mention that just the fact that Chocodice has become like an international phenomenon just off the back of one event in Coventry last year is just so I'm so glad. Suddenly, like almost every WTC team and player knows what the fuck is going on. It's just so funny to me. But yeah, overall, completely agreed with Duda that and it's all coming back to the same thing that I've mentioned in the start. It's all about the prep. It's all about the time you can spend, right? We know we have the skill. We know we are very experienced. We know that we are certain that we have what it takes to actually win this year's WTC. It's all going to be in the amount of time and preparation that we put in right before it. Hence, so we are looking forward to the whole 2 months being just a complete shit show that requires all of us to spend hundreds or thousands of hours just playing 40k, thinking about 40k, analyzing 40k, list writing 40k, and all it's being 40k, while also actually having a life and a job and a family, for example.
Or in the case of Gito, just say goodbye. I'm not going to see you for 2 weeks and just commit fully. But some of us unfortunately can't do that. But yeah, I think it's completely fair that it's just going to be a time thing and trying to commit as much as you can and get as much information you can in the limited time frame we have. So, one thing I think it's good to note about Poland is obviously we talked a lot now here about how you guys have, I'd say, opened up a lot and we're getting a lot more Polish voices. So obviously Typhus has aligned himself with Team Stat Check, so doing Enter the Matrix and doing coaching now a bit more publicly and stuff like that. Danny Porter, so your English-Polish friend, so doing a lot of stuff with Goonhammer, as well as just being a bit more public on podcasts and stuff like that. As well as you guys, so I know Pumba, you help host Team Poland 40k, as well as our friends at Contact Loss with Tomek or Tweak and Joker. So they do an English-based Polish podcast. So What's it like having like these people covering the Polish meta? I knew infamously there's like a quote that Nick Nanavati would always say, the Polish are the best players in the world, but no one knows of them. And I think it's safe to say people actually do know about you guys a bit more. So I guess maybe Duda, as someone who's been on the scene for quite a while, what's it like having a bit more of a public facing image for Team Poland and getting to hear about your small community?
So that's yeah. Sorry. I would say that's great. This is as far as I'm into the international community for this like 9 years right now. That was always something that considered me, because I really believe that, let's maybe not be like humble, but we are the great players. The best, maybe yes, maybe not. That's not the case, because you cannot really like say that someone is the best in this game. But we are really great players, and it was a bit disappointing that we went to the events, international events, and just crush them, win them, like perform very well there. Maybe not exactly winning, but always performing the best and always like ending like top 3. And we went back to Poland and nothing happened. Basically, like it was a bit disappointing, because the next time the international community hear about us was next year. So now it's a great, I think, that more of the people that do not attend like events like WTC can hear about us, can know our like thinking, can know how do we play, how do we think, can know us. I think that's great that we are opening up. Of course, our podcast like is running for 5 years right now, but it's only in Polish and it works only for our community. So it's nice that the best of us can just be shown to the world, and like I would not say that's my dream, but something that I expected throughout the years to happen, and it's finally happening.
Yeah, sure. But what do you think of it is having like a bit more of a public-facing image for Team Poland? And I know someone who helped contribute to the Team Poland 40K podcast, as well as like does your own bit with English translation and covering the Polish meta.
I think like people like that do this kind of content, especially I think mentions goes to Contact Lost. I think they've done so much great work for providing us an actual outlet to let people know what we think about the game. And as 40K in general grows, and we've seen that a lot, right? We've seen that happening all throughout the year, all throughout 9th edition. I think the game has gained an incredible amount of players, and it's seen in all of the statistics basically that we are just becoming a very popular game comparatively. Of course, it's still a niche hobby, but compared to like 5 years ago, even, I think there's a lot more players interested in 40K and interested in competitive 40K, because it's still even more a niche of a niche, right? And that kind of feeling that we actually have an outlet now, and we can be seen. We are not just that one team that goes to WTC once a year, as Dida said, wins or does really well, and everybody forgets for another year. But actually now being shown and just, I don't know, noticed, maybe even respected, right? As people who don't have that much international facing as some of the English guys, some of the Team America guys, right? It still feels great that we have a type of outlet and actual recognition that we are on the same level and we can fight those guys on the regular, and our opinion somehow also matters, not just theirs, right? It's kind of, you are not coming always to this conversation of us being an underdog, this unknown Eastern European team that nobody knows what there is going on out there, and then just they show up, they smash face, and they leave and come back in a year. Now we actually have an outlet to let people know what we think about the game, what's going on, and sometimes those opinions are completely different to what you can see on like English, for example, podcasts, English streams. Overall meta is sometimes different, so there's definitely a perspective also to gain for international viewers, right? Maybe if you want to go to a GT in England, in America, maybe instead of just net listing an Art of War list, you could sometimes even look to other countries, to either European metas that are just different, are actually innovative in some other way that might people around you might not expect, and they still work. And I think that's kind of great.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't say it better myself. I think that's fantastic. And the lads from Contact Loss are doing amazing work. And I know they're official like media partners of the WTC. So they'll be doing a bunch of interviews and stuff like that. And also look out for them in the lead up to WTC interviewing actually a bunch of teams and getting to understand a bit more from each of the teams and what's going on. So I'm sure they'll be talking to their fellow brothers in Team Poland and understanding more. So couldn't say enough lovely things about them. And as well as I'll definitely be trying to line up a chat with them and Nathan from StatCheck to see what they're going to try and do for the WTC. So it's awesome. So, and we can't get enough content. I'll consume it all. I'm just an absolute addict for the hobby, as well as any audio 40K stuff I can get in my ears. So it's beautiful. So yeah, what will you say, Pumba?
Oh, no, I completely agree with that, and I second that fully because I'm a fiend for any type of podcasts, and I also enjoy very much how the content side of the 40K has been developing with people like you, with people like Got Lost, with people like Fireside. It's all great to me, and it provides me endless entertainment during my work hours, just sitting on my computer and listening to podcasts endlessly.
Yeah, it's always something to learn and listen to, and even if you don't agree to it, at least you can understand a bit more and consume a bit more. So it's awesome. Before as we wrap things up, so Duda, I'll hand it over to you. Any final shout outs or plugs you would like to make before the end of the show?
Well, I don't think so. I don't have really anything to add, so I can pass it to the Pumba.
I also don't particularly run anything myself. I think the biggest shout out goes to, as we've said previously, Contact Lost. Watch them, and they are basically our window to the international scene and English speaking part of the world. Also, I think follow StatCheck for our good friends, my good friends, Ines, Anthony, Curie, and sometimes even Typhus shows up and fucks things up and like tries to explain things poorly in Enter the Matrix. I highly recommend that show. And I think that's it for the plugs for us.
No. Hey, you've hosted one episode, which is in English for Team Poland 40K. Come on, you've done one episode, despite good grand gestures.
It's so much work, man. It's just too much work. Actually, managing the team, hosting a Polish podcast, and trying to do an English podcast, we just didn't manage with the time. Hopefully, maybe someday it will come back. It'll be great. But yeah, just actually times is difficult to manage in being adult and having a life. Who knew?
Like the project is still on the table. We did like 3 episodes, I guess, but it died. I agree. It like came too much for us at that point, so we made the deep dive and we sank, unfortunately. But there is still some of oxygen in our lungs, and maybe we will just pop up in some time. Like we will see. The project is still on the table. We are not like neglecting to we are not dropping English content at all. We just take a break of it.
Nah, fair enough. I think maybe what we have to get like Dragon Ball Z or like animes and stuff like that have like the dubbed version. We just have to plug into Chat GPT or some AI and just get like an automated version, which is English. So maybe we have to do that because I know you guys are doing like an interview series now with all the players of Team Poland. So if you guys can understand Polish or maybe just read the translation subtitles, look, that's an option for you there. So, but yeah. just want to say thank you very much, guys, for being part of the show and talking to us. And as always, there's links in the description down below. So Team Poland 40K, I'll make sure to include contact loss there as well. And looking forward to seeing how you guys go at WTC. And thank you for your time. All right, and thanks everyone for listening. All right, have a great night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much for inviting us. Goodbye.